Cool. You're on? Very good.
Yep. It just had to get reconnected. Took a second.
Okay.
But it's when we were talking about before we got online, it was we got a little bit of reverb. Um was coaching and the kids in Canada. And part of the problem is there's just not enough time in the day because of the American culture to spend with the kids, um, to get them to the level that they need as fast as they need to be as successful as they deserve to be. When you're competing with countries that do it professionally from such a young age, because they're able to be professionals and make a living from the sport. Like we just can't financially get it to a point where you can take a kid and make him do judo 3 and 4 times a day. It's just not financially feasible in this country. The coaches aren't paid.
Yeah.
They can't get the kids in the gym before. You look at sports like high school and some other ones where they have practice before school starts. Like,
Yeah.
that's a challenge.
Right. I mean, you look at like a swimmer, even a swimmer training, swimmers in the
Yeah.
pool at 4 a.m, 5 a.m. And I think that the way judo is in the United States and how many less people are doing it, we have less coaches teaching how to play the game. And I find that to be a real problem, watching people make huge mistakes on the mat that are simple, mistakes that they make, just how they grab, where they move, decisions they make, choice of throw, all those things that I would expect at some level where they're starting to make good choices and they're still not doing it.
Well, I understand the dilemma, right? We had that dilemma in Montreal this past week, and it's like we spent like the last 2.5, 3 weeks working on trying to get a feel for the sport, right? Not a lot of resistance. Like, if you feel stuck, focus on positioning and leave yourself open for certain throws that you can look to counter. Like, don't stop the progression of judo from happening. Like, accept that it's going to happen and always have an offensive mind looking to score. And what happened in Canada was they forgot they were in a fight.
Yeah.
Like, well, now we're competing. Like, now you don't give your sleeve. Now you don't give these things. You fight for every inch. Like, you put everything you have into like the gripping battle, into the positioning, into not getting your sleeve taken. When we're practicing the feel and the position, that's one thing, but you got to know how to like flip it back and forth. And they don't have enough time on the mat to really like develop that look and feel where I did, because I was doing it professionally at the time, where when I train with an 8-year-old, I'm developing like a feel for the sport, like the patterns, that motion, that pull, that using my body, using my grips to gain reactions from my opponents, no matter how skilled they are or not. But then when I get somebody my own skill level and size, the glove comes off and I take that feel and I apply physicality to it to make it more competitive. They're struggling with the balance right now.
And I write about that in my blog that we have, from step 1 to step 2, making sure you're watching how you grab, how you move, all the aspects of judo that teaches from the ground up. So much easier to learn when you're learning from the ground up rather than after you've been doing it the wrong way for a while. It's really difficult to unlearn. I also, and you know this better than I do, but trying to teach my kids that, doing the waza is kind of like a body shot in boxing. You take someone down and you rough them up, and slowly, if you can't get them the first time or the second time, if you're really aggressive, by the third time you're gonna get them. And I'm sure that worked for you. I know it worked for Jimmy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, people's response when you rough them up on the ground, it's a different response the next time they go down on the ground. And they're fighting for their life. And there's even more openings then when you're a quality Newaza person. And I just don't get that. People don't understand that You know, it's a game of attrition. You got to win the long game too.
Yeah, that's where, Instagram and Facebook and the IJF have done such an amazing job just facilitating the being a fan of the sport, right? Like we all love opening up Instagram and social media and the highlights that the IJF releases. And you get to see all these like big epaules and these big throws and these spectacular movements, but you forget that there were 50 failed attempts before that
Yep.
that like helped tell the story and set the stage for this one spectacular moment in time to come together. And a lot of times the kids and the younger athletes, they forget that like it's still a fight. There's still missed opportunity. It doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong. It just means the other guy's doing something right. And you see a lot of like inexperienced coaches going back to the drawing board every time their kid misses a throw to like tweak it and fix it.
Yeah.
And they're not allowing the development of the body and the mind and the feel to all come together to create that spectacular moment. So you get a lot of like older players without the like physical strength within the position, you know?
I mean, you grow in baby steps, and that's why I tell the kids when you compete, your goal isn't to win; it's to get better.
Yeah.
You got to move forward. You got to leave the tournament better than you walked in. You got to gain something. There's going to be a time to win, but when you're developing, that's not the time to win. It's a time to get better. One of the things I did with these videos that I don't normally do is normally my videos are like 10 seconds long, and we see that beautiful technique or that wild, incredible technique. I added like 20, 30 seconds to the videos to see some of the fight before that. And it's still just a small piece of it, but it's exactly what we're talking about. These guys are fighting for position. They're moving around. You see their strength and athletic ability leading to that one attack. And we missed that with those highlights.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but when you see it, the level of frustration in my face when my athlete is winning the wrong way, and I'm like, do you know how hard that is to like undo?
Yeah.
From their point, like psychologically, I'm like, I just want to strangle them. And I'm like, Jesus.
Oh, I have that fight all the time.
I understand you're successful because you think you are, but 5 years from now, you don't understand how big of a problem that's going to be for you.
Right. Winning incorrectly is not winning.
And it really happens at the younger ages, like in the US, like the juvenile age, like 13 to like 17, because some kids just mature so much more than others, and they develop athletically just so much more than others that like they're taking an athletic and strength gap and a maturity gap and saying their judo's better, but that is by far not the case, right? That player could be more skilled, which means 5 years from now, when he finally does grow up, he's going to be kicking the crap out of you. And you're going to be confused as to why you haven't developed over the last years like you thought you were.
So those words are the exact thing I'm trying to portray in American Judo from the grassroots coaching side, is that, the winning at ages, between 8 and 16 don't matter. It just doesn't matter because there are huge gaps. There's huge gaps. I mean, you see kids that have facial hair when other kids' voices haven't changed. Kids mature differently. And it's something that you have to understand in development. And if all you do is worry about winning, then the kid who's winning when they're young very rarely ends up winning at the end.
Yeah. It's back to that whole little league thing, right? Like all those kids that play in the Little League World Series never play in the actual World Series.
Yeah.
Because they're not developing anymore. They're not developing their skills and their fundamental basics. They're so focused on competition that the ones that were focused on developing, playing the long game, they end up playing in the major leagues.
Right. And again, when we watch the end product, obviously we don't see the process to get to that end product of the great players, but the process is what it is. And it takes years and years and years to get there.
Yeah.
And an enormous amount of failure to get to the success.
Yeah, when I teach camps and clinics, people always want to know how I do my SEO and how I do certain things. And I'm like, I can't show you that because you'll never get it to work.
Correct.
You just don't have that strength and that position to do that. But here's the techniques I did do for years to get to that point. And then, like, if you do this for years, you'll get there. But most people don't want to do it for years. They just want to know how I do it today so that they can try to replicate it. And the only way they'll be able to replicate it is when there's a strength and a skill difference
Right.
rather than, that prolonged development over time.
And it's funny. I try when I talk about spacing in judo. It takes years to learn how to manage your space in judo, and it's a hard thing to do, and it's something that you have to work on. And as you coach, you have to continue to adjust and teach because it's so challenging if you don't know how to manage your space, because you can't do judo if you can't manage your space.
That, like, you're touching on my nerves, man. You're
I
touching on
know,
my
I know.
nerves.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge to teach. And again, it's just I get it. And I watch it, and I watch the kids, and I watched a lot of judo last weekend, and I found a lot of people looking to win any way they could, and not a lot of good stand up judo and stand up throws. Like when I was younger, much younger, when judo had a different system, and the system was set up to win by ippon. So the game gets a little different. But I share your frustration. I really do.
Here's an interesting topic. Let's have this topic. Because you're probably in a different boat than I am. But when do you watch athlete videos? Whether you're watching them of your athletes trying to find out what's wrong, or whether you're watching their competitors to help your athlete win, when would you start that?
So you talking about competition videos?
Yes.
That's what you're talking about, because
Yeah.
there's lots of times when I'm teaching kids, and again, I'm dealing with a different situation where people that I didn't teach from day one, and they have a lot of unnecessary moves in their judo that they don't recognize. You know, you're moving your butt out before you enter the throw. I don't. What do you mean? I don't know. So I have to take a video of it and show it to them as I correct them. I do that in that situation. I think when kids, when kids start getting competitive, I guess there's two aspects of it. There's using videos at a high level to help prepare a strategy on how to beat someone. For example, if there's a lefty that's a challenge for you, and you find another righty who beat that lefty, and you're using it that way and seeing where their vulnerabilities are and stuff like that, and you're using that videos like that at the high level. But at a young level, I think when kids are, I watch some videos, kids that are like 13 years old, and I start teaching them how to understand how to be coached with videos. Younger than that, I really don't do it, that much. But I'm a little, I would say, on the extreme side of video. I do a lot of video work. I really do. So the girls that fought in the President's Cup, I've already had a Zoom call with them. I went over their videos. Not every match, but the matches that I felt they needed to see what they did wrong and what they did right. And I break it down, and we go in slow motion, and they get to see it. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I guess the only time I ever use video is when an athlete, to your point on what you said earlier, was they're not understanding, they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
And they think that they're not, and they're debating it. Right? Like a big one for me is Uchimata.
Yeah.
Athletes will swear up and down, like they put their life on it, that that foot is at the top of the triangle.
Yeah.
It is not even close. It's like 6 or 7 inches the other way. And then you need to show a video so that they can see it. And then because they feel like it's underneath them, but they don't know what the right place feels like.
Yeah.
And they're not educated enough to make that decision.
Yeah.
The only other time I use videos is when we're trying to do drills to fix proper patterns,
Yeah.
right? Like we have an athlete right now that's a right-handed player that refuses to slide to his left, always goes to his right because he's so much physically stronger than everybody else. He doesn't get punished. But then he went to Junior Worlds and got punished.
Yeah.
First 20 seconds of the fight got punished.
Yeah. It works that way, right?
Told you. I told you. And sometimes we need videos so that they understand how often they're making that decision instinctually because they're not thinking when they're on the mat and they're not paying attention to those little details when in the gym. And it helps reinforce that you guys have to mentally engage when you're training so that you don't have to mentally engage in that way when you're fighting. You can turn it off and your body's instinctual reactions will, over time, just become correct. Like for me to do the wrong thing, like I just feel so disgusted with the movement that like it just feels so wrong because I'm so
Right.
trained to not do those things.
Right. You can't do them. If it's
Yeah,
all you do them. Yeah. No, there's no
it just feels weird.
learning correctly from day one is so important. It's so important because you learn the right skills. It's no different than learning math or science. You have to learn the foundational stuff first in order to grow. And when the foundation is cracked and you go up there, it's really hard to make it to the top if you don't go down and fix that crack. And it's a real challenge, you know. And if there's a small crack in there, if someone's not in position, if they're, you know, I have this thing, just like you said, keeping your supporting leg under your body, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot of ouchigari, and my girls, sometimes when they do ouchigari, they leave their foot back and they miss the ouchigari, they're falling forward. They have no control over their body. And my girls have gotten thrown with just a, you know, someone, you don't need to do a Sayanagi. All you got to do is go to your knees and you go over, you know. I mean, keeping that supporting foot under your body is so critical. And you know, I'm a nut about hopping on one leg, right? All my kids, I mean, I do that like crazy because you have to have your supporting foot under your body.
I remember one of your girls was here at the gym and we were doing like a technical practice and I was like, what's your biggest throw? Like the big one. You're gonna grab the gi and you're throwing this person for Ippon. She was like, oh Chigari. And I was like, that's used 90% of the times as a setup.
Yeah.
I was like, you gotta be able to like turn your back, pick somebody up off the floor. And she was like, can't do it. Doesn't do it.
So I mean, again, the challenge is that I don't have anyone that uses ouchi as a setup correctly. You know, I mean, ouchi. I believe everyone has to do ouchi because it's
Correct.
necessary to set up, right?
Yeah.
But you need to be able to change the backward to forward direction and know how to use it. You got to keep your body under, but it starts with ouchi, and let's put it this way: it's a work in progress.
So here's a question from the chat. What are your thoughts on people who start judo at 40 or more without experience in judo?
So you want me to take that?
Sure.
It's up to you.
I have my thoughts on it, but I'll let you go first.
You know, I find when I work with older men or women, I find it very easy to explain to them what I want them to do where they will understand it, where kids won't understand it. But on the opposite side, I find it very hard to get them to what I want them to do, even if they understand it. Just because of judo, I always say judo's like, you know, you start with a round hole and a board, and it doesn't fit. And as you learn judo, your body softens and you start developing a flexibility that fits into judo movements. And whether it's, you know, your hips or your back or your shoulders that fit judo, and you learn that you develop that as you're growing up. And when you start at an older age, it's really, really hard And that's why, for the most part, you feel very stiff doing judo. So, I mean, I stick with Osoto and Tayatoshi for older people when I'm teaching them, and maybe a lot of Newaza. But it's difficult to get that flexibility when you start over 40.
Yeah, I think for people who are older, I would even drop it down into the 30s and like older 20s.
Mhm.
You know, anybody outside maybe over the age of like 17, 18 years old, right? If you're going to start judo, I think you guys all fall in my brain in that same category where we have to start at the basics and we have to do a lot of I'm gonna hate that I'm gonna use this term, but like a lot of CrossFit style workouts, right? Where the randori is off the table, right? We have to do a lot of stuff from the feet where there's like physical pushing and pulling. Because the number one thing that hurts older people is their bodies aren't built for the impact of judo. It's it's super hard on people to drop from 4 feet in the air. And the problem is the person on the other side of you who's doing the throw, they're not skilled like you're not skilled. So that whole like rolling like a ball and like not getting dropped, all that stuff is like right out the window. It'll hurt a lot less if I throw you versus that other orange belt across from the room. Right. And the number one thing I tell people is spend the first like 6 to 9 months like getting in shape, getting rid of your anxiety from the feet, learning how to grip and grip fight because that'll help push the heart and the anxiety, and do a lot of work in transition so that it helps develop the overall aspect of judo before you're able to just like jump in there and just attack each other at will, because like you said, you don't have that flexibility, the dexterity, the like I've seen just too many older people just lock up, get stuck, and then boom, land on a shoulder, shoulders out. And removing all of those things from the table because you need time in the sport to help your body get conditioned. So a lot of throws on crash pads, a lot of physical pushing and pulling, a lot of gripping, a lot of newaza, and a lot of transition so that there's somebody coming down on top of you. You get used to that impact of just extra weight on your body at all times. Most people, I remember when I was training for, I think it was like 2013 or 2014. I got invited to do like a physical fitness workout and like lead like a group workout activity. And I was like, okay, great. Let's do the warm up, my active dynamic warm up. So a lot of skipping, a lot of plyometrics, a lot of moving. And I turned around after 20 minutes and everyone was dead. And I was like, uh oh, this was supposed to be 45 minutes. This was the warm up. And you forget how trained your body is to like work out at that tempo and that pace. And when people first start out, that randori session is so far into the future for them. And we have to get it out of our heads as judo instructors that judo's throwing. That's one aspect of judo in like the overarching cosm of the sport. And if we can focus on all those other things, we keep more people involved in the sport.
And understand that people that do judo from when they're a young age, their ability to relax when they fall is a whole lot different than a stiff guy hitting that tatami.
Oh yeah. And their bodies grow up with that impact where like
Yeah,
it's just normal for them.
yeah.
Think about like a Thai boxer or a Muay Thai fighter. Like that impact on the shins and the elbows that they take, like you can't just walk into the gym and kick like that. Like that takes years of development and practice where your body gets conditioned for those types of impacts. Like nobody wants to just fall from 4 feet in the air and land on the floor. Not to mention with somebody on top of them and just go boom. But for us, that's just an everyday walk of life that our bodies are just conditioned for that physical contact.
There's a question from Roddy. How you doing, Roddy? Glad you joined us. Let me tell you what I do, because I do a lot of ashiwaza. Then Travis can go in. So first of all, from the very beginning, I make sure that my students know how to use their feet when we do ashiwaza. So whether it's turning your foot for doing a ashibarai or a kouchi, pointing your toe when you hook a leg for an ouchi, same as osoto, and make sure we're comfortable with our body positions and and our supporting leg under our body. And we start working going through the motion of the ashiwaza, making sure when we're doing our ashibarai, we're sweeping from the hip and making sure we're getting our body turned the right way on ouchi. All those things in practice, in just our warm-ups, doing that regularly. And then I do a lot of just ashiwaza movement, where one person goes for 2 minutes and they're moving in one direction using kochi, moving in the other direction using ochi. I work sasai in there too, and just start getting comfortable doing ashiwaza. And I do it a lot. I do a lot of ashiwaza. Again, you need to use your feet. It changes the way your opponent plays you when you're threatening with your feet. If someone's got good footwork, you have to be aware of that all the time. It's a great, great addition to your judo, and I think it's necessary. So take the time and do the, you're moving one direction, hit the kochi, move the other direction, do the ochi, move a sasai, relax, and take the time to do it. And I understand people want big throws, but it's like you want to put the carpeting and the curtains on the building. You got to put the bricks in first. You got to build the foundation. So I know there's more fun parts to do for some people, but you got to take the time and do it, and make sure they're so important that their foot position and their body position is correct when they're doing their techniques, because it won't work otherwise.
Yeah, force isn't the right word. I encourage all of the kids to start the 10 minutes before we actually get into the practice just doing shadow footwork drills. Everyone has like the movement pattern that they want to be working on, or like the vision in their head of like what ashiwaza is needed for them for their main throws. And then the other thing that I really hammer home with all of the athletes is every 2 to 3 steps, you have to touch the other person's foot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how you're going to do it, but you have to. And you don't have to score with it, but it has to be touched in such a way that it generates a physical response from your opponent. Meaning they freeze, they stumble, they move their foot, they stop sliding, they change directions. Something has to happen. You can't just reach out and touch it and then think that they're going to continue on with the path. That means you didn't do enough to generate that physical response from your partner. So every 2 to 3 steps, if they're not looking for that major throw and they feel like they can't get that attack in, then they have to reach out and touch that foot to get that physical response from their partner. And then once we get them to that point of every couple steps, they're touching their partner in a few different ways, different parts of their feet, Sasai this time, Kochi that time, Dayashi this time, and they're moving around. Then we can see which ones they're using more likely in the matchups, and we can start to perfect it and look for chances to score. But really, it's just about that like activity with it and keeping it out there like a jab in boxing. Like it's never going to knock the guy out necessarily, but every once in a while, it'll do the trick.
I love that. And one more thing before I answer another question. I always tell my students that when I'm competing in a match, I always want to make my opponent think about something else other than stopping me from throwing them. So if it's within my feet where I off balance them, and when someone's off balance, they have one thing on their mind, it's getting back on balance. If it's with my gripping where I could remove a grip and make them feel they have to grab me. So that's all they're thinking about is getting another hand on me. I have that short-term advantage while they're trying to think about something else where I can attack and get an advantage. And I think that's really important to understand. And it's no different than in any other game. I want to take his mind off stopping me for that 1 second where I could take an advantage. And let me go to one more thing. I really want to suggest, at American Judo, I write a blog from day one when you start judo. Please take a look at it if you want to know. It's not a curriculum, but it sets up the first whole year of judo. And if you have any questions, you could ask any of us. But that's what we do at American Judo. We have an encyclopedia, and we also have a step-by-step how to learn judo. It's not in tremendous detail, but it's pretty much guidelined where you start, how to grip, what you have to look for. And it's something, it's not a long read. I don't go into great detail, but it's worth looking at if you want to have some guidance. Travis makes me do it.
Going back to that Ashiwaza thing, to Roddy's comment on like the every 2 to 3 steps. For me, a lot of judo happens inside the transitional space. It doesn't happen from we're stuck in a position and we try to make it work. There's an ebb and a flow that's always happening, like a wave in a water, and it's finding that timing and that ebb and that flow that's really, really important. So every like 2 to 3 steps, every like 5 to 8 seconds, like if you feel stuck, you have to be willing to make that change, whether it's a gripping change, a physical change with your opponent, you touch them with the foot, hands change positions. Because once your hand, right, and the really experienced guys who can feel judo will tell you this. If my hand goes from here on your chest to there on your chest, your heart will start racing. It'll boom, 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 because panic's gonna set in. All because my hand went from too low to in position to smash you, right? And you feel that difference. So fighting for those incremental changes all the time to generate that physical anxiety response in your partner will make a world of difference. A lot of people get stuck and they stay in the same place for like 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and they're not really sure what to do. And then they end up forcing that bad attack and then getting countered instead of taking a step back, breathing, relaxing, and working on that positional change, adjusting the hands, adjusting the foot placement, turning your shoulders by 10 degrees, standing up with posture instead of bending over. Those little incremental change where you can learn to relax will really help you like develop long-term rather than focusing on that short term. Because if you're bent, let's say, and your hands are stiff, and all of a sudden you decide to like take that courageous leap of faith, right? And go, I'm going to take a deep breath, but I'm going to stand up and I'm going to try to fix my hands. And then you get smashed. You actually are more beneficial from that experience than keeping your head down and hands down and not getting thrown, right? Because you're learning how to relax and let that anxiety like leave your body so that then you can participate in the fight instead of just like stay balled up to make sure nothing bad happens. Because that's in this essence is losing. Once you can learn to relax and then come back up into that position where you can engage in the fight, then you can start to progress your way through the sport and start to develop long term. And eventually you stop getting thrown. Then eventually you start gaining that muscle needed to play defense with your core and your hips, where your hands can relax. Then your hands can start being offensive. And it's that incremental ladder, a little bit at a time, instead of focusing on like who won and lost this exchange. Like, what are those micro adjustments you're able to relax and make?
Well, that's outstanding. Someone asked a question about. I'm going to come back to that. Is judo like checkers or chess or whatever? Judo's absolutely like chess, absolutely like chess. And what Travis just said, in a nutshell, is that when we play judo, we don't see, we feel. It's feel. You stand up, you get close, your body, your hands, you feel what's going on. People move too quick to see it. You have to feel it. And you learn to feel it by standing up, putting your hands in the right position. And yes, there's a price to pay to learn that. But once you learn that, you don't have to learn it again. And it changes the way you play judo. That was that was very well said. It's exactly what needs to be done. And for you young coaches who out there, or any coaches, what Travis just stated is 100% what you have to do. Don't worry about winning the match. Learn the skill. Learn the skill. It's so critical to do that. And once you do that, then you could build on that foundation, and then the big throws will come, and you'll understand how to react.
Oh, like here's one of my biggest pet peeves now, because now you got me thinking about it, right? And I know people teach this, and that's what drives me up a wall when I watch experienced people teach this as the right thing to do. And it drives me bananas. But two right-handed players, I reach out and grab your sleeve, so you reach out and grab mine. Then I take my right hand, and because I can't get it off, I decide to grab your sleeve. And I'm like, well, now what do we do? Like, now what happens? Because once you take that grip, you've accepted the fact that that sleeve is never coming off. Once you've taken that grip, you've now dropped your defense into a position where they can pull it. And now that you've grabbed that sleeve, you can't grab that gi in any offensive way unless your main throw is Sode. So I get into this debate with Sode players. They're like, yeah, but I can do this. It's also the only thing you can do, apart from a Kochi the other side. Or if you're Sagi Muki, like a Sode to a Soto the other side. But it's so one-dimensional. And if you don't do it right when you take the grip, which is when it's the most successful, right? The longer you keep it, the less likely you are of being successful. You get stuck because the other person plays defense. Now both of you two can't do Sode because both of you guys are pushing down and you're both stuck and you both look like idiots. And I just like sit in a coach's chair shaking my head frustrated.
Yeah,
Drives me bananas.
yeah, that's an absolute no-no for me too.
Drives me bananas. Just keep your hand up. Drop it when you're ready to do Sode. If you're not ready to do Sode, keep your hand up.
So I mean,
Simple.
I was never a Sode person, but I never let my arm get extended down. Never. I would never let my arm get extended. I don't know how to play judo from there. I don't know how you play. Yeah, there are guys like Mookie that is got some kind of insane
They're
strength.
like the one percenters.
Right,
Don't
there.
build a game plan on the one percenters.
Maybe less than that. Right. You can't do it. You got to get your hand up.
All right, let's take a look at some of these videos here.
Okay, cool.
They're eyeing me over here on the side. Boom. Oh, this is interesting. Oh. Stupid. I love White's patience.
Yep.
Oh, the experience. Oh.
See how close they were in the match? I wanted to show that interaction before the throw because I thought it was so good.
The problem is like the German just doesn't have like a way of getting out of this.
Yep.
Which is why everybody needs a sacrifice throw.
Yep. But
like,
look how patient he was. Yeah, it was nice.
I struggle because like at any point during this exchange, all Blue had to do was sue me.
Yeah.
That's it, because White has to play defense. You can't get a penalty. And even if you do, it's better than the outcome that you had, right? This goes back to the conversation we had before where, like, you have to learn how to play the game.
Yeah.
It's not just about proving that you can stand up. In practice, I love Blue's training method. Like, we're going to learn, we're going to develop, we're going to do all these things. But now we're fighting. Now we have to play the game, right? And you can't treat it like a randori session. Oh, it drives me bananas. Like, you can see the, like, what's the word I want to use? Like, the experience of White and the patience. Like, you only get that through competing all of the time.
Yep.
Sammy, while we're watching this, as a beginner, Osoto. 2 hands, collar, sleeve, Osoto. It'll be this, it'll work left, right, 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 left, left, doesn't matter. It'll be a good basic. Just learn how to get your leg across and block that knee. All right. Ooh, this is an interesting one. The heavyweight's going at it.
Yep.
The pure level of stupidity. I just. And the problem is like they're quality players, but they're stuck in these positions of like dumb.
And I mean, this is the last the last Grand Slam gold medal match.
Like it begs so many questions, right? And so for those of you guys who are like confused as to like when you watch Judo through my eyes, like what I'm talking about, I'm gonna pause the video. Pause. No. Pause right here. Okay. I just nope, can't do that. Doesn't let me. Oh, it's not gonna let me just go frame by frame.
No.
This is a position I would consider dumb. Right? Like sitting back on her heels. Blue is throwing a power overhand. But right now, White in this frame has her right hand on the sleeve of Blue, knowing that that hand is getting thrown down the back. Why are we holding on to that sleeve? The only reason why you would hold on to that sleeve is if White had every intention of allowing the hand to get thrown so that they could get underneath and do like a one-handed Seo Otoshi, a one-handed Taio, a one-handed drop Seo, a drop Ippon Seoinage, a Kochi Makikomi where the hand's coming down the back. The goal cannot be to stand there with your left hand acting like you're going to stop that hand from coming all the way down your back because it's not happening. That it clearly wasn't happening the exchange before. It's clearly not happening now. But all White has to do to stop this from happening is let go of that sleeve and put that hand across to block that shoulder.
Yep.
Problem solved. Now you have 2 hands blocking your shoulder, right? When she throws it, you catch it, you grab it, you keep it, and then you put your other hand on the gi. And if you can't because White is a lefty, which I have no idea, right? Because her right foot's forward in this picture. But if it's a lefty, you pin it, you put your left hand where it needs to be, which is on the shoulder, you let it go, and you go back to the sleeve. Yeah. And then the left hand can block the shoulder from being thrown down.
Yeah, she's not playing like a lefty. She looks like she's a righty. And I promise you, Blue, who was Dicko from France, #1, this isn't the first time she's seeing her. So the way she's grabbing is not a surprise.
You know what's happening. And like when you watch it unfold, you're like, what are we like? Why are we like patty caking this? Like, even if you lost it, like don't play patty cake. Just put your hand on the gi. Punch it in there. Oh. Again, walk into the right. Walk into the right. Walk into the right. Just walk into the right. We're just going to keep doing it. Jesus. Next one. We're done with that one. Oh, this one's not playing. Let's go to this one. Why aren't they playing?
It's got to catch up. Just give it a second.
Oh, did I lose Steve? There he is.
All right. Yeah, sometimes it's got to catch up. It does that on my coach's live sessions too.
Got it. It's thinking about it.
It's thinking about it. There we
Oh,
go.
here we go. Oh, oh. If you ever needed a video to explain keeping your hips under your shoulders, man, this was it.
I
Oh, man.
I love when people attack both sides. You know, Hitsio Soto comes back with the Ashi. I just love that.
Normally, I'm against it, especially when you're this out gripped. Oh, oh.
Those aren't small guys.
They are not. But he's a lefty, so.
Yep.
Oh,
Look at that.
bam.
You know, we were talking about Ashiwaza before, and when you're using your feet a lot, you develop movements like that.
Oh,
Yeah, Hashimoto's that does a lot of different things.
uh, I like watching him do judo, but I hate what it does for the community.
Yeah. Uh,
I don't think people understand how dynamic he is, how strong he is,
yes, and
and and how much time he's put into developing this throw. I mean, that one was illegal, but whatever. It's the
yeah,
IJF. They do what they want to do.
he goes both directions too. He does, you know, Taio Seyanagi. He does great judo. You know, is that Mookie's? Who's he throwing at 73? Who's he throwing? I can't tell.
People just, I don't really have anything to say about this
Yeah.
other than watch your elbows. It's just so dynamic, and it's so hard to replicate for people.
You know, as we talked about, you know, studying videos and preparing for a match. I mean, someone that's got great technique, they got great technique. Nothing you can do about it, but that would be a reason to watch a video to prepare. And I don't know how you prepare for that.
I wouldn't be surprised if the IJF in a few years banned a one-handed sode.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised. Because I know a lot of the stuff that they do has to do with like kid safety and watching like higher level judo guys participate in the sport and trying to recreate it.
Yeah.
And that looks like to me a bunch of 13-year-olds dislocating each other's elbows,
Without a doubt.
you know? But still unbelievably dynamic. This kid's also dynamic. Oh, you gotta touch. Oh,
Yeah.
Is he gonna get him?
I left this in for you.
Is he gonna get him? Oh, come on, you child. Who gets rolled like that?
Simple, just basic Newaza here.
There we go. Oh, the elbow. He got
Yep,
him.
there you go.
Oh, look at that. He turned the corner.
Yep.
Look at that. Thread the needle. I love watching people get turned.
Yeah.
Cycling judoka, one-handed techniques are not banned. The Korean seo is banned as a one-handed technique only if you throw your partner backwards, where the back of their head hits the mat. I'm gonna watch this turn again. I don't know why he fell down though. Like I don't like why did he just like see the lack of offense from Blue is the whole reason why he got stuck.
Yep.
Had he just shot a double there or done anything, hold on, we're gonna back this up. Right here, if he just pushes him on his butt and tries to work past his guard, wide bail, he's out of this completely. Yes, judo taught at most BJJ schools is a waste of time because they're putting it through that lens and that filter of what is applicable for jiu-jitsu.
You know what I like about this is this guy's a great player, but on the ground, and like I said, Travis, you know this better than I do, is that you keep tipping a guy, you're going to find an opening. You're good in
Yeah.
Newaza, you're going to find an opening. And as simple as just doing a half, getting an arm and doing a half, you're going to find it when you keep doing it because you're just so aware,
Give credit to this referee for even allowing all of this
letting
to
it
happen.
go. Yep.
That's impressive. Stupid double sleeve grip. Fucking stupid. Stupid. Stupid is as stupid does. Serve no purpose.
I don't like that either.
Some people teach judo just to help learn takedowns, so they teach some basic like foot sweeps and positioning and gripping. Oh, I mean it's a nice drop. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
Circling to the right. Oh.
Yeah, she got under her nice.
Yeah, but there's just so many like fundamental things wrong with it.
Yep.
White sliding to the right. Circle, circle, circle. The wrong direction. Should have gotten thrown or foot swept. Oh. Oh, so many just simple things that could have happened to avoid all of that. But you get caught in the fight.
Yep. This is a quick one, but I'm a sucker for a good society.
That was pretty.
I'm a sucker for a good society. I don't see enough of it. And I love Krasnicki. She's a really good player. She has the unfortunate timing of being around when Abe is around.
Oof. She sold that footwork too. That was so pretty.
So you
Little
know,
batter of the feet.
when you watch that, people don't realize how hard that is. With the Sasai when you switch your feet like that. That's a challenge. It's a challenging move to get that, to teach it.
Well, you have to have the throwing capability to earn the respect with the pitter
Yes.
patter of the foot.
Yeah. No
That's
question.
the hardest thing for people to understand.
Yep.
I see so many, like, when I'm training with like brown belts and like younger black belts, they try to like do that, and I'm like, get out of here. Like, I'm not threatened by you.
Right.
That's not doing it. It's not what they're doing is wrong. It's just I personally am not
No,
intimidated by your
you're
footwork.
not right.
But in this scenario, I might have been. Oh, such a strength difference.
Look, I mean, her posture is just, I mean, when she grips, when she moves, her posture is so good. Here's the guy from Azerbaijan again.
Oh, he adjusted his hand. He's gonna go.
Yeah, you can't stay on someone's back.
But the more impressive thing is what we spoke about earlier is
Yep.
having that ability to like relax and make those like adjustments.
Yep.
So when he's in a bad spot, right? Guy comes down his back, boom, he lets go.
Yep.
You adjust that hand and watch his hand just like work up the gi until he gets it to a comfortable spot, and then boom, right underneath him. That's the impressive part about this.
Without a doubt. And that's something that you need to teach that. Like, it's easier if people can develop it themselves, but you got to make that movement. You got to change. Yeah.
And Blue was just too comfortable with that overhand grip, thinking he had him beat, and didn't realize that he was working his hand into a positive position and got beat with it. Again, like those 2 to 3 seconds, had Blue just touched his foot, that drop sail doesn't happen.
And the other thing that you can't see as well on this side is that White's sleeve hand is pulling down so hard and so tight. That's why he gets that finishing so strong. Because he's not.
The Germans let Richie Troutman go.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Boom. Impressive. Impressive, to say the least.
It's good judo, huh?
Yeah, I just wish people used it more for improving themselves and focusing on what people are doing wrong and how they could improve it, instead of looking at it as ways I could throw somebody, or another way to like throw my opponent. Like the move I really hate that I see even my athletes do, and I get so mad when they do it, is they both grab each other's heads and they try to reach around and grab the body and then duck the arm and run them, because they saw a couple of Georgians do it.
Right.
How about we don't get out gripped? How about we fight for better position? You shouldn't have to train a technique like that to get good at it, because those are things that like in the moment you just do because you make it up. Like,
there's another thing too, is that you watch something on a video and you don't realize the enormous strength and athleticism of the athletes that are doing it.
Yeah.
And if you haven't played them, you don't realize, and as a heavyweight, I mean, I fought people that were so insanely strong. I trained just so I can manage their strength. These guys are just monsters. They're so strong, and you got to be able to play it. But my God, if you don't understand that when you see it, you're not going to be able to mimic that move.
Yeah. Crazy. But we're at the 1 hour mark. That's all we got time for today. Thank you everybody for joining us. It was a pleasure. thanks, Steve, for getting, all the techniques together. I enjoyed it. Until next month when we do another one.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Thanks for joining.